I'm looking at my screen now.
So you pressed got it.
Yeah,
Right.
I got, okay, I just pressed got it. Yes. Here we are. Here we are. Okay, I'm going to start. The conversation that we are going to have was triggered originally by COVID, which separates people and sometimes brings them together. It's driven now in part by the war in Ukraine, which puts before our eyes people who are suddenly driven away from their common life, driven away from their intimates, isolated with their own fears and terrors. So this is our conversation. It's about solitude. It's about companionship, and it's about time. And it's not an intellectual conversation. We're not here to bring out solutions or sharpen definitions. We're really here to share what we see. If this was radio, we would call it picture radio. Our first topic, and we'll start right away, is solitude. Okay, Hugh.
Yeah.
When you think of solitude, what's the picture in your mind?
Well, it's actually fairly new for me, but during the pandemic, I started working on amateur astronomy, and I bought a small telescope. And the solitude that you feel when you are looking up into the universe, up into the sky, and see things that you can't see with the naked eye, see things that make you feel just apart from everything around you on the planet and instead in touch with everything that's up in the heavens. It's I think it's a special kind of solitude that for some reason I crave, and I'm not really sure why.
Barbara, what do you think? What's your picture for solitude?
Well, I was thinking about the fact that I grew up in a family of five. I was the oldest of five girls. And so I didn't really experience much in the way of solitude. And in fact, I wrote something in my high school yearbook, not even on my page, on just sort of a random page that for some reason they decided to print, that asked the question whether I actually even existed really when I was by myself, which was kind of a peculiar approach. But do you want me to read it quickly to you? It's very short, but
please.
What am I when I'm alone? I form myself to enjoy friends, to be happy among them, and I become a part of the spirit that is the relationships I have. But when I lie awake before getting up in the morning, when no one knows yet whether I've died in my sleep, I feel myself to be a vacuum, beginning to prepare myself for other people of the day. Could I exist were I to prepare myself for myself, not for my friends, with no anticipation of meeting others all day? Part of that was because at that point, my parents were in the process of getting divorced. I had a sister with serious mental health issues, and I felt as though I was defined by my entire family and by all the people around me. And I suddenly panicked because I was going to be going off to college and nobody was going to know all that stuff about me. And that's not necessarily solitude, but I was afraid of solitude at that point. But on the flip side, I've been very lucky that my son and daughter-in-law have moved to Maine, and I have extraordinarily strong, long memories of standing on the edge of the world, at the edge of the ocean, and staring off into that emptiness and feeling a sense of calm and peace. And that's the other side of solitude that I have experienced.
Faith, what do you think? What's your picture?
Well, I haven't liked too much solitude in my life because being connected to people has been everything to me. And I was lucky enough to have a job where I was very connected to people. It was on radio, and it was a call-in show. And so there was Bruce, in fact, we did that together, and there was a lot of connection. Then this solitude gets forced upon me. Ukraine gets forced on these people. And it made me realize that I have needed solitude to recharge myself. But the forced solitude is, it's very strange and alienating to me. I feel lonely, and I don't like it. I have a dog, and he is now my best friend. You know, he's just a love, but he's dying. And so I have many pictures of solitude yet to come.
We seem to have lost Bruce temporarily.
Oh,
I don't know, but maybe if we're going to continue, perhaps John wants to say something.
I'd be happy to. As an introvert, I suppose I have a fair appetite for solitude in its various forms. And during the pandemic, of course, one looks for avenues in which to embody that. So one of the aspects of solitude that's important to me is walks through woodland trails, of which there are many where I happen to live now at the University of the South, which has 14,000 acres. And some might think it has an excess of opportunities for solitude, but among the many pictures in my mind is a fairly recent one where, despite my repeated walks, and of course the Buddhists consider that sort of form of walking meditation, I actually discovered a new trail in the midst of these wanderings to a place called Bridal Veil Falls. So that to me, there is part of the beauty of walking such trails is not only being removed from people and some of the annoyances that people can bring, but insofar as I'm able to remove myself from some of the anxieties and tasks and obligations and all the rest. And for me, because I am an academic who studies all these naturalist writers, Henry Thoreau and John Muir and Rachel Carson and Annie Dillard, I feel myself nonetheless in the company of these solitary adventures, even as I am physically alone.
So what's next? What happened?
So when you went out, I was just inviting John to give his speech as well. So we have, I think, the first round, and now it's up to you that you continue with the second one.
Okay, I lost the picture. My computer suddenly conked out, so I was struggling to get back when while John was speaking.
But
and
finally,
happily, I did get back. So, yeah. Okay, let's pick it up again.
so that now it's second round.
Yes. Okay, so that's some thoughts about solitude. What happens when solitude is broken? And not necessarily in the case in which you're talking, but maybe, Barbara, when you did go to school, when your solitude was broken, what was that like?
I am actually I sort of like Faith. I'm I like connections. I'm very relationship oriented. So while I was trying to understand the balancing act between finding solitude and meeting lots of people, and while I'm not an introvert, I act like an extrovert, except I don't feel like one. So that breaking of solitude, that sense of putting yourself out there was quite distracting, but ultimately it was successful. I made a lot of friends in college, and I've been relatively good at networking, so to speak. But I do think that balance is important, and it's not one that's easy to manage. I do think that in some ways the pandemic did in fact force us to rethink the importance of solitude in a way that as Faith was saying, was forced upon us, not necessarily what we were looking for. But I do think that balance is important. And I am learning more about how, despite the interruption, I still am finding more time to try to center myself in whatever solitude means.
John, can I come back to you?
Sure.
When solitude is broken, what happens? Or, and it may be that you're thinking about sorrow, or you may be thinking about John or somebody else.
Right. Well, I would say, Bruce, that although I have, or I want to think I have, a great appreciation of human connection, of deep conversation, of times of sharing with others, I am somewhat vexed by what I take to be idle chatter at moments where a certain silence is desired instead. That is to say, to come back, there are times when walking in the woods when I don't want to hear lots of chatter, or before a sacred ceremony and so forth. So far as the interruption, I think that for me, at the risk of sounding a little misanthropic, I think that simply, again, that word chatter is to me the most distressing interruption of solitude. And in your next question, you get what we might do to persevere through that. But for now, maybe that's enough to say.
Can I just add that I agree. I often, if I'm walking in the woods or walking along the trail, I have to say I have a pang of disappointment when I see or hear someone else on the trail, as though I deserve to have complete solitude when I'm walking in the woods or walking on the trail. So I understand exactly what you're saying, John.
Thank you, Burr.
Hugh?
Yes, solitude interrupted. I tried not to overthink this, and I have to admit that the first thing came to my mind when I thought about solitude interrupted was being in the bathroom and being alone with your precious bowel movement, and having, whether it's you're at home and your partner walks in, or whether you're in like some public bathroom and you're just have this private moment, communion with your body, say. And I didn't necessarily think I was going to go there, but hey, I figured it's Bruce, I might as well go there. But but maybe in a more serious tone, I don't know, maybe that's one of the most serious things. I was thinking, a dear friend who had cerebral palsy taught me an Orthodox Jewish prayer. He had very little control over any part of his body, and there's this prayer that you're supposed to say in Hebrew after any time you have any bodily function, and the prayer basically goes, thank you, God, for keeping all the things that are supposed to be open, and all the things that are supposed to be closed. And the whole idea that the body itself is just this amazing connection with what's sacred. Maybe I will go here. Maybe I'll just say that in those moments when you're at your very lowest, most human, most excremental form, even then solitude is, there's a certain kind of solitude that is worth having for a few moments in a day.
And maybe the bathroom then your bowels offer an excuse that you can't deny.
You can't deny it. That's true. So going from the sublime of the heavens and astronomy to the about as low as you can go. The most fundamental thing.
So what else was all of you about interruption, about the break in your solitude? And it may be that it's because there's some anxiety that suddenly breaks in on you and makes you lonely instead of a person in solitude.
I would, at that point of view, I would like to add something from my side, because I found what you were mentioning wonderful. So there are people who are always hungry of relationships and dialogue. And I must confess that the time of sleep or conceptual work, whatever it is enough for me to be lonely. So I need mental, emotional, and physical contact every time, and have never felt a sense of loneliness. So perhaps there is melancholy because something is over. So for instance, because parents are not there anymore, or people or situations I was really loving to have. And that would be a form of loneliness I would think about. But anyhow, probably I'm missing something, not having any disruption by not having some sort of loneliness. So at least that's what I wanted to add.
I was, all of us probably have been part of performances of some sort. And when a performance ends, when a cast breaks up, I always experience a great sadness. And what I want to do right away is direct another play.
I understand that. How about, did that happen to you when you were teaching and the class would go away? Would you feel sad, or did it have to be a special group of people?
I would feel sad if I felt I just didn't make what I wanted to make. I didn't say what I needed to say. I wasn't open to the class. I mean, when the class didn't go well, I felt pretty desolate. When it went well, I thought, oh, I'm part of some enormous intellectual conversation throughout all of the universe, and goody for me.
Yeah. You know, I found myself, as people are starting to say, and, you know, I investigate whether they're safe or not, come to dinner in my condominium complex. And I found myself saying to my therapist that I didn't want to go. And that I was sort of saying, now, how does conversation go? I mean, my whole life has been about conversation as a profession. And I thought, now, how does it go? You talk, they talk, and then you say something back, and then they say something, and there may be an interruption. I mean, I really had to practice how this went. This is how far I felt from the connection that I love. And my therapist said, do you know what agoraphobia is? And I was startled, because I thought, you can't possibly, you know me, you can't possibly be saying I've become agoraphobic. And she said, what happens is we all kind of do in these situations like these ones we're in, because the room or set of rooms you're in, that small space, or maybe even on your walks, you start to say, this is nourishing to me. And it's the aloneness that you start to identify as nourishing. And then when the solitude is broken, you have to practice again, and you feel strange. Now I feel happy in here. I don't want to go out there. I don't want to be, you know, and yet I'm listening to all of you thinking, this is one of the best conversations I've heard in a long time. You're just saying such interesting things.
But I do think a conversation does include people talking back and forth. So that's why I keep interrupting. I apologize. But I mean, I appreciate exactly what you're saying, Faith. It's been difficult to start to step out, even though I'm teaching in school and we all have to sit there with our masks on, and I don't really enjoy that part. But I am in a group of people, although it doesn't feel the same as a social conversation, and the creeping out back into society, as it were, has gone more slowly than I had anticipated, because I missed it, but I'm actually then uncomfortable with it. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to have to learn again.
So what have you learned? What do you know now? Maybe because of COVID. I find myself listening to the news from Ukraine all the time and pointlessly, but I'm fascinated and appalled and saddened and frightened by that. And I think that COVID came along for a lot of us with that same kind of frightening, my God, that's not part of my life. That doesn't belong in my life. How do you, when your sense of solitude or your reach at solitude gets damaged or threatened, what would you do, or what do you see yourself doing? Like you, Faith, what do you see yourself doing to get back the kind of solitude, or a solitude that's better in the next year?
Well, watching what's going on in Ukraine, and I have the television on all day long, and sometimes the sound is off because I can't take any more of the pain that these people are going through. But I would say to you that maybe unlike some Buddhists around us, I feel I spent a lot of time thinking about how do we take out Putin? Now when have I sat around and said that I think this person should be disappeared, should be killed? And how would we do it? And I have all these plans about how our people could do it. And I think, what in the world are you talking about? What to myself, what are you doing? Because this is, Star Trek life. This is, you go off into the universe and you have to figure out how we're going to get along with these various people out there. So I spend time with these thoughts that I usually don't have.
And you don't want to have.
And well, no, that's the thing that I'm saying. I do practically enjoy having them, because I think if there was some way that this could happen, I would be so happy. And that is very unlike me. So I see things in myself that I didn't quite know were there. And so but I think I've been changed by this in a way that is good, because I hear myself more. I hear myself thinking. I talk out loud to my dog as if we're having a conversation. I talk out loud to myself because there's no one else here. I know I can call people, but I'm used to hearing myself in my headphones. And so I say these things to myself, and then I think, okay, breathe and feel. What are you really feeling right now? And then I start watching movies and I enter these other worlds, and I love it. I love being in these other worlds. So there's all of that, a mixture of all those things going on at the same time.
We have 2 more minutes, and then we're going to go on to the next topic after we have a glass of water and jump away. So last comments on solitude.
I can say I've been rebuilding solitude by reading more, which similar to Faith watching movies. I've been making the time to read and probably escaping a little bit from the television and the news and everything. And I've been listening to books on tape when I drive into Hartford every day, as opposed to listening to the news, because I find that overwhelming. I think I've I've been diagnosed with high blood pressure. I have to take medication. So I have to give myself more solitude in order to try to address that. But I have found that the escape into fiction has been extraordinarily helpful to me.
Just another reflection. When we use the word solitude, we're thinking, of course, of a voluntary self-confinement. COVID has given us a touch of what enforced solitude might mean, and there are extreme forms of that in the world. It's why a lot of criminal justice systems have what's solitary confinement, which rightly or wrongly is meant to be a punishment, in fact, but at the same time, confinement that is forced upon us, either the milder forms that most of us have known in COVID or the more extreme forms, can be productive as well as painful. And some of the examples that strike me through history, St. Paul writing epistles from prison, Martin Luther King, the letter from a Birmingham jail, Nelson Mandela, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and as Bruce, your wonderful book comes to mind, From Ice Set Free, about Otto Kiep, resistor in Germany, and I think about some of the latter days and of what it must have meant to be in not just in prison, but removed from any form of normal interaction, and what sort of depths of spiritual discovery that might involve. So, these things come to mind, even in these mild forms that we experience of enforced solitude, bring to mind other dimensions of what people now and through history have been forced to endure, but have nonetheless drawn value from along the way.
Now, I wonder if, I've never thought of this, but maybe I have, where you say to yourself, wait a minute, is this curse something else? Is this thing forced on me, in fact, something I should have chosen, and now I choose this? I remember as a child that happened to me. I remember thinking, no, this is not happening to me. I'm choosing this. And it really did shift the way I was thinking. Feeling, yeah.
I have to mention a wonderful passage to me in The Snow Leopard by Peter Matheson, where he describes visiting the Lama of Shea, and he says, is it, are you living a satisfying life? Are you happy? And he says, of course I am, because I have no other choice. One of the great lines, I think, in that work.
Yeah. Okay, guys, well, we're going to take 5 minutes off and then start again. And the conversation the next time will be about companionship. And I will probably ask you to quickly introduce yourselves at the beginning.